did continue wrestling after being inducted in the Hall of Fame not once but twice. So I think there is a chance of Sting being the next one to be inducted into a Hall of Fame and keep on wrestling. I mean, Sting said it himself, he's not good with goodbyes, and that's the one quote from Sting that you have to remember and keep in the back of your mind. I'm not good with goodbyes. And I remember watching Sting wrestling when I was a teenager. I've been watching wrestling ever since I was a kid, but I remember watching wrestling when I was a teenager because of Sting in World Championship Wrestling, and then watching him wrestle from WCW to TNA and wrestling with all these big names like AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Kurt Angle, even Ric Flair in TNA in that Legends match from a few years ago. So Sting definitely gave me a lot of my fondest memories as a teenager watching professional wrestling, and he still gave me fond memories as an adult watching him wrestling only at a minimal amount of times in World WWE. The thing is, Sting is still giving me memories as an adult, having watched professional wrestling for nearly 20 years. So that's really cool that Sting, kept on giving me moments long into my adulthood after watching him as a kid and then as a teenager and seeing all these incredible matches Sting has given me over the years that I've been watching professional wrestling. So why should I believe for 1 minute that I've seen the last of Sting, especially with so many wrestlers for Sting to create with? How about Sting versus Bray Wyatt or Braun Strowman? How about Sting versus Brock Lesnar? Although Paul Heyman believes it would be Sting's retirement match in the final match of Sting's career, I think Sting versus Brock Lesnar would be a great match. Sting versus Kevin Owens, or even Sting versus Bo Dallas. After the Scorpion Death Drop post WrestleMania 31 and his loss to Triple H, he gave Bo Dallas that Scorpion Death Drop, possibly setting up for a feud between Sting and the Social Outcasts or Bo Dallas himself. There are so many wrestlers that Sting has yet to create with, and that's something that really sticks out in my mind. I mean, Sting's not just going to wrestle against one or two names, and that's going to be it for Sting. And Sting's not signed with WWE just to come in and do this or that, or just for the sake of being inducted into the Hall of Fame. I mean, that's not only the only thing Sting wanted out of his run with WWE. He wanted to get to a point of solidification, I really believe, and I don't blame Sting for being frustrated with how rumors were running rampant about how Sting almost tore up his contract with WWE right in front of Vince McMahon prior to WrestleMania 31 because he didn't want to go out and lose to Triple H. I mean, who wants to lose in their first match ever after having a legacy with World Wrestling Entertainment? Here you come to World Wrestling Entertainment for the first time ever and you lose your first match to Triple H. Of all people that you could have lost your first match to. I mean, they could have had The Undertaker versus Sting be Sting's first match, which would have been more appropriate than to have Sting go out and lose to Triple H the way he did, being kicked in the face by Shawn Michaels. Is something I will never agree with or hear me agree with. You will never hear me say that I agree with Shawn Michaels kicking Sting in the face at WrestleMania 31. The way things went for Sting at WrestleMania 31, and 6 months later in that match with Seth Rollins was just used as a way to put Seth Rollins over as the champion of the future of WWE and the future of WWE. I really did not buy into that for 1 minute, and just having him lose to Seth Rollins was another way of pissing me off about the direction of Seth Rollins' character and the direction of Sting, because I think Sting has definitely been overshadowed for far long enough, and I think that we need to see Sting get to a point where he gets to that point of solidification, regardless of who it's against. Brock Lesnar, The Undertaker, Bray Wyatt, Bo Dallas, I don't care. As long as we see Sting get to that point of solidification. And a Hall of Fame induction is one way of looking at it, which I fought for Sting to have for months after Sting's arrival back in 2014. It took us 2 years before Sting was inducted into the Hall of Fame. And here's the thing that really is getting to me. A lot of people believe the only reason why Sting went into the Hall of Fame was because he broke his neck in his match with Seth Rollins, and I don't believe that to be true. I think that was something that was definitely inevitable for Sting to go in to the Hall of Fame. That was obviously planned when Sting was announced to sign with WWE, and he was going to be having a role with the company, and I think there are going to be more roles outside of what we've seen Sting do thus far. Matches with Triple H and Seth Rollins, a Hall of Fame induction is one way of looking at it, but a role as an announcer, a general manager role, some role with the network, those are possibilities for Sting, even if he doesn't wrestle, and still the chances of him wrestling again are up in the air. You will see Sting wrestle again, depending on who are some of the general managers we'll see in the future come into WWE. I think if it was Eric Bischoff, we'd see more of a chance of Sting actually wrestling with WWE. We are going to see Sting wrestling again regardless of who takes over WWE and what happens in the future. It's just a matter of them trying to figure out something for Sting to do in the way of a Daniel Bryan, who they've been trying to figure out for something to do for forever. And I think the only option now is for them to do things with the network, because they can have their own TV series like Holy Foley, for instance, or some other show on the network that they're hosting in the host role. They can be on the panel, say Legends Review or something like that. So there's a lot that they can do with a character like Sting, just as they could have done with Daniel Bryan. And I think that Sting and Daniel Bryan pretty much are in the same boat. They're just trying to figure out for things for Daniel Bryan and Sting to do, and once they do that, we're going to be seeing them have a future with professional wrestling. It's just really sad and really depressing to me to see Sting's career end the way that it did, kind of like how it was for me seeing Bret Hart's career end in World Championship Wrestling back in 1999 when he was kicked in the head by Goldberg in that incredible match. And then Bret Hart suffered from a concussion, which ultimately led to Bret Hart's retirement from professional wrestling and his demise. I remember seeing that match on Nitro, as I just mentioned. I used to get off the school bus when I was a teenager and watch Nitro repeats on Tuesday and Wednesday afternoons because of people like Goldberg, Sting, Diamond Dallas Page, the Macho Man Randy Savage, and Bret Hart. And if we're not talking about retirements of wrestlers because of World Championship Wrestling, we're talking about wrestlers that made World Championship Wrestling famous who are dead now. People like Macho Man Randy Savage, for instance, who was definitely a legend with World Championship Wrestling for all the matches he had as part of the NWO and just his career with World Championship Wrestling. So I think that World Championship Wrestling definitely gave me some of my fondest memories as a teenager, maybe not as an adult, but definitely preceding my adulthood. World Championship Wrestling definitely gave me a lot of memories, and it was because of people like Sting. So why should I believe, after Sting said he wasn't good with goodbyes, that this is it for someone like Sting? I think I've grown tired of these rumors of Sting's future looking like this, or Sting's future looking really grim or really depressing. I don't blame people for being as tired of hearing about this as what I've become, because I'm the biggest Sting fan that you can hear these days on YouTube, and that's one of the biggest reasons why all these video blogs have been being posted by me on my YouTube channel is because I'm one of the biggest Sting fans in the world that you could hear on YouTube. I mean, yeah, there are Sting fans that you'll hear on YouTube preaching about how we haven't seen the last of Sting, but then there was me, who has not given up and has really been harping on this issue of Sting, wrestling just twice, losing 2 major pay-per-view matches, and only winning 1 match, or 2 considering it, with the Big Show and John Cena, teaming up with John Cena to face the Big Show and Seth Rollins, preceding or post the Night of Champions pay-per-view last September. So with only just 2 victories and them not coming on pay-per-view, I think we have not seen the last of Sting wrestling. And again, you go back to his Hall of Fame induction speech, the video package they had for Sting. I mean, who's going to believe for 1 minute that we've seen the last of Sting? And I've been talking about this match between The Undertaker and Sting for a really long time. I've even called it the match of the century. I've called it a lot of things, but one of the things that I've called the match between Sting and The Undertaker was the match of the century. And I still believe that it is the match of the century, just for the psychology of the storyline that would be written for the Sting-Undertaker match. This is a match that really needs to happen. And out of all the dream matches that we have seen, there was a handful of dream matches that we have not seen, like Stone Cold Steve Austin versus CM Punk, or Bret Hart versus The Rock. But in the handful of dream matches that we have not seen, The Rock versus Brock Lesnar is another one. One of them is The Undertaker versus Sting. And I think that of all the dream matches that we have seen or not seen, this is the match out of the handful that we have not seen that we have to see as wrestling fans, because we'd have so many fans of Sting, so many fans of The Undertaker. There would be so much diversity and so much of an opinion thrown around on social media. And I think this era is a perfect time to have this match happen, because if we had it happen 10 years ago, we wouldn't have had social media to discuss this match. But with social media being as popular as what it's become with professional wrestling, I think this time is a perfect time to have it. We've got WrestleMania 33 coming up, and there's nothing really wrong with Sting. I mean, Sting can rehabilitate himself from the neck injury. So can The Undertaker from all the injuries he's had, even though he's had a fair share more than what Sting's had at 58 years old and 51 years old. For The Undertaker, a difference of maybe 9.5 years between the two of them. I think there's really no reason why this match can't happen, and why conversation for this match can't be seen at an all-time high, and why ratings and pay-per-view rates can't shoot through the roof. They would skyrocket if this match were to happen. I mean, people would buy the pay-per-view for one night if they weren't subscribed to the network just to see Sting versus The Undertaker. I know I would. Definitely the pay-per-view, even if it wasn't WrestleMania, would secure 1 million buys, because this match has never happened before. And you have to take that into consideration. We've never seen Sting and The Undertaker wrestle before. We've seen them both wrestle for World Championship Wrestling under different names. Like The Undertaker was called the Skyscraper, and Mean Mark Callis for companies like World Championship Wrestling, but never before have they wrestled. And I think this would be awesome if this match were to happen. Not to mention all the new talented initial wrestlers like Bray Wyatt, who I talked on last week here on the show about his future, and all the wrestlers Sting would have a chance to create with, and still could create magic with in a WWE ring. I mean, the opportunities for Sting are really endless, and with how many fans have supported Sting ever since they first laid eyes on Sting. I mean, Sting won his first championship back in 1990. I remember watching matches like this for years when I was a teenager and just watching him wrestle Ric Flair the way he did, and all the other matches he had with Ric Flair. He shared more history with Ric Flair than probably anyone he had wrestled with over his career, the span of over 30 years. I mean, wrestling with the likes of Vader and Lex Luger and Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan are one way of looking at Sting's career, but I mean, looking at all the matches that Sting had with Ric Flair, and one of them being for Sting's first major championship at the Great American Bash back in 1990, I mean, Sting's been there from the get-go, and I think that Sting deserves to be honored. And I think that watching Sting winning all the championships, all the honors he was given throughout his career was a privilege of mine to have done so. It was really an honor to watch Sting wrestle the way that he did. And I think that, Sting is just not done. I don't believe that Sting is done. And I'd like to believe that I can get away with saying that Sting is not done. After being such an honor for me to have watched Sting wrestle for so many years, have talked about all these moments that Sting has given me as a wrestling fan, as both a kid and a teenager, and well into my adulthood, I think that Sting definitely is someone who is never going to be forgotten, and I just don't believe for 1 minute that Sting is done. I mean, why should I buy into this whole idea revolving around Sting's neck injury, his retirement, and the end of his career? I mean, the Hall of Fame induction ceremony was one way of looking at it, the end of Sting. People just walked away from the Hall of Fame induction ceremony, and here's the thing. They all drew their own conclusions. They said because of a neck injury, Sting is done. Because he's in the Hall of Fame now, he can't wrestle anymore. Nobody said anything about Sting not being able to wrestle anymore, or he can't wrestle anymore. They're just drawing their own conclusions. And I hate that about wrestling fans sometimes, or some wrestling critics out there who write these columns or post these video blogs on YouTube. I post video blogs on YouTube, and while I may not know the future of professional wrestling in its entirety, or really know what the exact future of a wrestler may detail, or the business in its entirety, I don't know everything about professional wrestling, and I will publicly admit that to you here on this show. But the one thing that I know is true is the fact that these are all bullshit of lies, and Sting deserves